page facing up chapter 1. The dream of thinking machines. Long before silicon chips and neural networks, before lines of code and glowing screens, human beings dreamed of creating minds not born of flesh. We have always been drawn to the idea of building something that thinks, speaks, feels, something that mirrors us, yet is made by us. This dream did not begin in laboratories or tech startups. It began in myths, in temples, in the quiet corners of ancient philosophers' scrolls. It began with stories carved into clay and whispered around fires. The dream of thinking machines is as old as civilization itself. In ancient Greece, there was Talos, a giant bronze man forged by Hephaestus, god of the forge. He was not a god, not a man, but something in between. He walked the shores of Crete, guarding the island from invaders, his body filled with ichor, the lifeblood of the gods. He moved, he acted, he protected. He was in every meaningful sense an automaton, a machine with purpose, with motion, with a kind of will. The Greeks imagined him not as fantasy alone, but as a possibility, a thing that could be built if only one had the skill of the gods. Centuries later, in Jewish folklore, the golem emerged, a creature shaped from clay, brought to life through sacred words and ritual. The golem had no soul, but it had strength, obedience, and a terrifying potential for destruction when left unchecked. It was a warning as much as a wonder, a being created to serve, but capable of turning against its maker. The lesson was clear even then: to build a mind, even an artificial one, is to invite both wonder and peril. In the courts of medieval Europe, mechanical wonders delighted kings and scholars alike. Clockwork birds that sang, mechanical monks that prayed, silver fountains that poured wine without human hands, these were not mere toys. They were early expressions of a belief that motion, behavior, even semblances of life could be engineered. The universe, some believed, was itself a great machine, and if God was the divine clockmaker, then perhaps humans, made in his image, could become lesser clockmakers too. Then came Descartes in the 17th century, the man who declared, "I think, therefore I am." He drew a sharp line between mind and body, between the mechanical and the mental. Animals, he claimed, were automata, complex machines without true consciousness. Only humans possess the immaterial soul, the thinking substance. And yet in drawing that line, he also opened a door. If animals were machines, could machines, given enough complexity, mimic not just movement but thought? Descartes himself doubted it. He believed language and true understanding were beyond mechanism. But his framework laid the groundwork for those who would come after, those who would dare to ask, what if thought, too, is just another kind of machinery? In the 18th and 19th centuries, the dream grew bolder. Jacques de Vaucanson built a mechanical duck that could flap its wings, drink water, and even appear to digest food. It was a marvel and a fraud. Inside, hidden mechanisms simulated digestion, but there was no real biology. Still, audiences were awestruck. They saw not wires and gears, but the illusion of life. And illusion, as we would later learn, is often the first step toward reality. Then came Ada Lovelace, daughter of the poet Byron, but a mathematician in her own right. In the 1840s, she worked with Charles Babbage on his analytical engine, a mechanical computer that was never fully built in their lifetime. But Ada saw further than Babbage. She wrote what we now call the first computer program, a set of instructions for the machine to calculate Bernoulli numbers. More importantly, she speculated that such a machine could do more than calculate. It could compose music, produce art, manipulate symbols, if only it were given the right instructions. She called it poetical science. She understood that the machine itself was neutral. Its power came from what we asked it to do. She also issued a warning that the machine could never originate ideas. It could only do what we told it to. That distinction between calculation and creativity, between instruction and intention, still haunts us today. The 20th century brought new tools: electricity, vacuum tubes, transistors, binary logic, and with them new thinkers. Alan Turing, a quiet genius from England, asked a question that would echo through the ages. Can machines think? He didn't just ask it, he proposed a way to test it. The Turing test: if a machine could converse with a human so convincingly that the human could not tell it was a machine, then for all practical purposes, it could be said to think. Turing didn't care about internal states or consciousness. He cared about behavior. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, or talks like a human and reasons like a human, then perhaps it is, functionally, a duck or a thinker. Turing also imagined machines that could learn. He spoke of child machines that could be educated, shaped by experience, just like human children. He foresaw neural networks before they had that name. He was persecuted for his sexuality, chemically castrated by the state he had helped save during the war, and died young, but his ideas lived on. They became the foundation of everything that followed. In 1950, when Turing published Computing Machinery and Intelligence, the world was still recovering from war. Computers were room-sized behemoths used for ballistics and census data. The idea that one of them might hold a conversation, write a poem, or play chess at a master level seemed like science fiction. And yet, within a decade, it began to happen. The Dartmouth Conference of 1956 is often called the birth of artificial intelligence as a field. A small group of scientists, John McCarthy, Marvin Minsky, Claude Shannon, and others, gathered to explore the idea that every aspect of learning or any other feature of intelligence can in principle be so precisely described that a machine can be made to simulate it. They were wildly optimistic. They believed that within a generation, machines would be doing everything humans could do and better. They didn't foresee the complexity. They didn't anticipate the bottlenecks, but they lit the spark. What followed were decades of boom and bust, what we now call AI winters. Periods of excitement, funding, breakthroughs followed by disappointment, disillusionment, and retreat. Machines could play checkers but not understand a child's story. They could recognize patterns in narrow domains but fail at tasks any toddler could handle. The problem wasn't processing power, not yet. It was understanding. How do you encode common sense? How do you teach a machine what a chair is, not just by shape, but by function, by context, by culture? How do you give it intuition? Still, the dream persisted. In labs and garages, in universities and corporations, people kept building. They built expert systems that could diagnose diseases. They built robots that could navigate rooms. They built programs that could translate languages poorly, but they tried. Each failure taught them something. Each small success kept the flame alive. And now, here we are. In the 21st century, the dream is no longer distant. It is in our pockets. It answers our questions. It writes our emails. It paints our pictures. It drives our cars. It watches our faces. It learns our habits. It predicts our desires. The thinking machines are here not as metal giants or clay servants, but as invisible intelligences woven into the fabric of our lives. But are they truly thinking? Do they understand? Or are they, as Ada Lovelace warned, merely doing what we have instructed them to do, only faster, wider, deeper than she could have imagined? That is the question we still wrestle with, and it is the question that will guide us through this book, because the story of AI is not just about technology. It is about us, about what we value, what we fear, what we hope for, what we are willing to create, and what we are willing to become. The dream of thinking machines began with myth. It continued with mathematics. It exploded with microchips. And now it is becoming reality not with a bang but with a whisper, a voice from a speaker, a sentence on a screen, a suggestion in your ear. We built this. Now we must decide, what do we do with it?